I can get some layered image effects in Illustrator, but it requires some planning ahead in Photoshop. So I'm in Photoshop here and I've got this image of a pelican, and I also have a version of the pelican where the background is masked out. They're two different layers, and if I place both of these in Illustrator, I can get some interplay with type or shapes between the two. I can also work directly with type and shapes in Photoshop, but for this demo I'm showing how to prepare the files and how to export files from Photoshop and place them in Illustrator. So I'm in Photoshop, I have both of these as layers, and I want each of these to be a separate file. So I'm going to go to File, Export Layers to Files, and you can choose and make sure you know what folder you're going to. Um, the file type, because I want this to be transparent, I'm going to save this as a PNG. Each of these is a PNG file. And I want to make sure that trim layers is not turned on. The reason for that is if I say trim layers, this masked out layer is going to be cropped down just to the edges of the wingtips and the beak of the pelican, and I want to make sure both of these files are exactly the same, so I don't want to trim the layers. Okay, and then I'm going to run, and this is going to take a minute. I've got a pretty big file here, but it does automate the process for me, and it's going to make two separate files, one that's the background and one that is the mask. It does take a minute here. But when it's done, it will tell me the files were successfully exported or successfully created. Come on. Okay, export to layer files was successful. Good. Now I'm done with Photoshop. So I can see that it has exported as advertised the pelican mask and the background. So now I'm going to come to Illustrator and on a new layer, File, Place, the background. Now this is really big. I have a big file, which is good in terms of resolution, but I'm going to need to scale this down to make sure I get it working here. And now I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm in Illustrator, new layer, and I'm going to select this photo, and then over here in my layers, hold Option and click and drag. See how I've got the little plus sign? It means it's making a duplicate, and I can see in the layers, that there are two, one on top of the other. Now, the key is for the new image, I want to select that, the one on top, and then I'm going to go to File, Place. I'm going to navigate to the mask, and here in my options, because I have the one image selected, I want to, in the options, make sure I check that replace button. So in this case, it's going to place that mask image right over top of the background. And now if I wanted to do something in between the two of them, if I want to make a new layer that's a middle ground, I can make that happen. Let's see, I'll just spell it, woo, undo, never mind. New layer, ellipse, fill with white. I'm going to lock the top one so I don't move it. Lock the top one so I don't move it. And that gives me the ability to have some interplay between the foreground and the background. I could also, because this is the circle is capable of masking out certain things, I can select that circle and I can select the background image and go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make, and now I get something that looks like that. So it's requires some groundwork ahead of time. It requires some planning, but I can get some pretty flexible, changeable, modifiable image pairs and work with dimensional uh, breaking out across dimensions and breaking out of masks and boundaries and boxes using Photoshop and Illustrator together.